Why are you doing this?
I remember!
The question was, would anyone detect that we were sane? The answer was, no. No one ever did.
The controversy regarding the myth of mental illness and psychiatry is not about science or medicine, it's about power.
It's June 2025. Now this video is inspired by a video I have just recently watched. Maybe I cannot relate to everything, but definitely there are points in this video that really got me thinking about my life. And this is what I'm going to be talking about, is part of my life, or perhaps even a fragment of it. And this is a topic that I know very well. Now before I get into this video, I have two things I would like to say. The first, this video is not founded on ill intent or malice. I have none. I'm simply going to be stating the facts, historical facts of my life. And anyone that I may mention or imply, again, I have no malice or ill intent. Now this segues into my second point that I would like to make before getting into this video, and that is, throughout my life, I've never blamed anyone from my past for any hardships, for example, that I may have gone through in life, nor have I given credit to anyone in my past for any accomplishments that I've achieved in my life. I'm just going to expand on this a little bit further. Despite the dysfunctional childhood that I went through, primarily after my mother left my father, I still went on to accomplish many positive, great things. Some might even say that I climbed to the top of the ladder, top of the mountain, whatever. And I never let anything negative in my past hold me back. Now, I'm just going to segue for a moment. Where I find myself in life right now, say for the past decade, is by my own choice. I made a choice to help vulnerable women at a non-profit mental health organization from being sexually abused, trafficked, whatever descriptive you want to use, and it cost me everything. And that's a choice that I obviously live with to this day, because I'm still living in the aftermath of the injustice. And this also encompassed, for example, my exposing police, judicial, and political corruption, not only in the city of Calgary, but the province of Alberta. But now I digress. So I think I covered all the preliminaries that I wanted to say before I get into this video. Now, this video was about someone who's an adult now, who, for example, it almost, if I'm not mistaken, we're almost the same age. I think this person might be half a dozen years younger than I am. I don't know, but some of the things that they were saying was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So this person, this guy, his parents had split up, and the father ended up being out of the picture for whatever reason. I don't think he really explained it, but it doesn't matter. And so he ended up being in full custody with the mother. Now, the mother obviously got a boyfriend or remarried or something, and the mother didn't want this guy, her son. And then she would send him to different places to stay and everything else. And he just kind of bounced around a lot, but eventually he ended up back living with his mother. And she didn't want him in his life, so she conveniently set him up and put him in a so-called mental institution. And he goes on to talk about what life was like inside of this place and how horrible it was. In fact, it sounds more like a nightmare. And all he wanted to do was get out. And eventually he did get out and carried on with his life. And it sounds like that he, despite everything, became successful. Maybe not in the same way, for example, that I may have, but in his own way. And when he was talking about his childhood, it just started to be like, yeah, I remember that, being bounced around after, for example, my mother left my father, and she ended up eventually getting remarried, and how I would always be threatened to go stay here, go stay there, and send me to foster care, and you know what they do to them there, and torture and everything else. Now I'm setting aside the physical and psychological torture that I endured with my mother, that I've talked about that in other videos. I'm just focusing on one part of this guy's story that really hit home for me, that reminded me of something that I almost forgot. And eventually there came a time where, just before, maybe a year or two, if I'm just trying to go by memory, before I moved out, just after I turned 17, after surviving being deliberately poisoned for some sort of insurance trust fund, which was stolen from me by her a few years after. But anyway, I digress. She and her husband had taken me to a place, some sort of facility. And I remember there was one of these liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, so-called practitioners sitting there. And it was kind of, I want to say the walls were kind of all white, very sterile environment. There was just some chairs along the one wall to my right. And my mother had set me up to go to this place. I'm not exactly sure where it was all leading to. I just remember that evening she's saying, we're going to go shopping. So I went along, and we ended up going to this place. And he was asking questions and everything else. And I remember at one point, something inside of me just said, go, leave now. So I just got up, walked out, and eventually found a side door to the building, walked out of it, and worked my way to home, their house. And listening to this guy's story, I'm like, wow, I can relate to a lot of it, other than the fact that he actually was committed in and spent years inside until he finally got himself out. And what better way to get rid of somebody out of your life than to kind of tuck them away that way? I want to segue for a moment. This also applies to people who, for example, whistleblow and expose first-hand knowledge of very serious things implicating very powerful people, perhaps government officials. Tuck them away in some psych ward, and that way they're discredited. No one's going to listen to them because, hey, they're crazy. And people assume that this liberal arts, theoretical science of psychology, is a real thing, and they can allegedly diagnose all this make-believe things from the DSM. I think we're up to 5 now, or 6. Anyway, I'm digressing. But listening to his story, it was like, wow, I remember. And you know, I endured a lot with my mother, and I also recall after she left my father, she had a breakdown, a very bad breakdown, just like this guy in the video. After his mother left his father, she had a big breakdown. So there's a lot of similarities. There's also a lot of differences, obviously. Now, what can you take away from this? Well, perhaps you can relate to this guy's story some, maybe my story some, or maybe it's just reminding you of something in your life, because all our lives are different. We all have a story to tell. Some of us just decide to tell the story. That's the only difference. But maybe this is reminding you of something that's tucked away. Oh, I remember that. And I did a video a while back talking about putting, for example, as a descriptive, negative things on a shelf, dealing with it later on in life when circumstances, mindset, everything else is changed, stronger, that you can kind of revisit it and then deal with it and then file it away forever. Perhaps you don't even have to do that. You just file it away immediately. But whatever. But just know one thing, that you are not alone with whatever traumas and injustices that you face. You're not alone. Perhaps that offers some comfort, knowing that you're not alone. Perhaps that offers, along with comfort, some sort of support for you, help you cope with maybe there's something troubling you. But remember in the beginning of this video where I said not to blame people from your past. Who knows, I don't know how long in the past your situation is, but regardless, it's in the past. Leave the past in the past. Move forward. If I was able to succeed in a positive way on many different things, everything I put my mind to throughout my life, and I'm no one special, then you can do it too. And perhaps that's the whole point of this video, is to say you can do it too. Don't give up. Survive. What have I been saying all along in my videos on other topics is to survive. Survive life. Hopefully this video gives you some things to think about. Perhaps draw some strength from it. Something positive. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. I've said this before many times. How do you know when you are crazy? The answer is very simple. When you stop asking if you are.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.